Silent night, deadly night, Willow Creek was the kind of town where Christmas felt magical. Snow-blanketed rooftops, string lights glowed in every window, and carolers roamed the streets, filling the air with festive melodies. But for the past 3 years, Christmas brought with it a nightmare. Children vanished from their homes, only to be found lifeless on Christmas morning, clutching a red and white candy cane in their stiff little hands. The locals whispered about the killer they called the Crimson Claus, a sinister figure who seemed to mock the holiday spirit. Despite the mounting terror, the police had no leads. No fingerprints, no witnesses, nothing but candy canes and sorrow. Private investigator Noah Grayson was not a man of faith, but something about the case had drawn him in. He wasn't new to tragedy, having spent years chasing shadows and solving crimes that haunted him. But this one was different. It wasn't just about justice, it felt personal. Noah's cramped office was dimly lit, the only light coming from a desk lamp, and the twinkling Christmas lights strung outside his window. Maps of Willow Creek covered the walls, red pins marking the sites where the children had disappeared. He had studied every detail of the case, the time of the abductions, the victims' backgrounds, even the design of the candy canes. Something gnawed at him. The abductions seemed random at first glance, but he felt certain there was a pattern. As he traced his finger along the map, a realization struck him. The pins formed a starogram, deliberate mockery of the Christmas star. Noah's breath quickened. "It's not random," he muttered, "it's planned." Digging deeper, he noticed another chilling detail. The children had all been taken from locations that corresponded to figures in the nativity story. The first victim was near a field, like the shepherds. The second near a church, symbolizing the wise men. The third a child born on Christmas Eve. This year, it was happening again, Noah was sure of it. But where would the Crimson Claus strike next? On Christmas Eve, the streets of Willow Creek were alive with joy. Families shopped for last-minute gifts, children played in the snow, and the air smelled of cinnamon and pine. But Noah's focus was elsewhere. He had narrowed the likely target to a neighborhood on the outskirts of town, where a family with a young child born on Christmas Eve lived. He patrolled the streets, his breath visible in the icy air. As he passed a crowded square, his attention was drawn to a mall Santo sitting alone on a bench. The man's suit was worn, his beard slightly askew, and his gaze vacant. He clutched a bag of toys tightly, his gloved hand trembling. "Odd place for a Santa to take a break," Noah remarked, sitting beside him. The man didn't respond. Up close, Noah noticed a faint smell of gasoline and metal, an unsettling combination. When the man finally turned to look at him, his eyes were hollow. "Big night ahead?" Noah asked casually. The Santa stood abruptly, slinging his bag over his shoulder. Without a word, he walked into a nearby alley. Noah hesitated only for a moment before following, but when he turned the corner, the man was gone. All that remained was a single candy cane lying in the snow. The encounter left Noah rattled. He returned to his office to review his notes, determined to make sense of the killer's twisted logic. Hours passed as he sifted through reports, maps, and photographs. Then it clicked. The killer wasn't just recreating the nativity scene, he was following a twisted ritual. The final target wasn't just any child born on Christmas Eve. It was the one who symbolized the Christ child in his dark narrative. Noah rushed to the city registry, scanning birth records for children born on December 24th. One name stood out, a toddler named Sophie Bennett. Her family lived in the same neighborhood he had been watching earlier. His heart raced as he grabbed his coat and headed back into the freezing night. The Bennett home was a picture of holiday cheer. Through the frosted windows, Noah could see a family gathered around a glowing Christmas tree. Sophie, a chubby-cheeked toddler, sat on the floor giggling as she played with a stuffed reindeer. But something wasn't right. Noah strained. I caught a shadow moving outside the house, just beyond the glow of the string lights. He crept around the side of the house, his gun drawn, and spotted him, the Crimson Claus. The man was crouched by the back door, a sinister grin on his face as he reached into his bag. Noah's shout startled him. "Step away from the door." The man turned slowly, the Santa mask now fully in place. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice low and chilling. Inside, the family screamed as Noah burst through the back door. "Lock yourselves in a room and call the police," he barked. The Bennetts obeyed without question. The Crimson Claus didn't run. Instead, he walked slowly into the living room, his boots leaving wet prints on the hardwood floor. "You don't understand, do you?" he said, his voice trembling with rage. "They're not innocent. They never were." "Drop the bag," Noah demanded, his gun steady. The man chuckled, pulling a candy cane from his pocket. "Do you know what it's like to wake up every Christmas morning to nothing? 2 lies, 2 promises that never came true." His voice cracked as he continued. "My parents said Santa would come, but he never did. Every year, I waited. Every year, I was forgotten." Noah's mind raced. This wasn't just a killer, it was a man consumed by his own broken childhood, punishing others for the happiness he'd been denied. The Crimson Claus lunged, swinging the bag like a weapon. Noah fired, the shot echoing through the house. The man collapsed, clutching a candy cane in his bloodied hand. As the police arrived and took over the scene, Noah sat on the porch, staring at the snow. The family was safe, but the victory felt hollow. He couldn't stop thinking about the killers, ice-haunted and filled with pain. In the days that followed, the town breathed a collective sigh of relief. Christmas morning came, and children unwrapped their presents without fear. But for Noah, the case left a scar. The Crimson Claus was dead, but the story behind him lingered, a tragic reminder of how even the brightest holidays could cast the darkest shadows. Somewhere in the quiet snowfall of Willow Creek, a carol drifted faintly through the air, carrying the weight of sorrow and redemption. And the silent night held its peace once more.